When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Baker's, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Baker's worth it every time. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
It's time for today's Lucky Land horoscope with Victoria Cash.
Life's gotten mundane, so shake up the daily routine and be adventurous with a trip to Lucky Land. You know what they say, your chance to win starts with a spin. So go to LuckyLandSlots.com to play over 100 social casino-style games for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Get lucky today at LuckyLandSlots.com.
Available to players in the U.S., excluding Washington and Michigan. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello and welcome to Islanders Anxiety from Lighthouse Hockey and the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Dan Saracini. Joining me on this Monday evening via Zencaster is my friend Michael Leboff. And Mike, I'm going to make two statements right off the bat on this episode. One, I am declaring this a Rangers-free zone. We are not going to discuss the Rangers. We're not going to talk about the Eastern Conference Finals. We're going to pretend they don't even exist, so we can at least try and put that out of our minds. How does that make you feel? If is that all right with you if we try and do that?
Yeah, it's all right. It's fine for tonight. It's looming over at me and everyone else for so long, and I will just say one thing, which is I'm adopting a new outlook for starting with tomorrow game 4, which is I'm just gonna root for the Panthers rather than just like doomsday it, you know, rather than just look at it as like a ticking count. Right. I'm now gonna look the other. We're gonna put the shoe on the other foot. So
yeah,
that starts tomorrow. It's the midnight rule though. I get to walk till midnight.
Okay, yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Panthers shirt ready to go.
Oh wow! So you're really going in. This isn't just talk. You're really invested here.
No, I got yep.
Okay.
I'm ready for it. Hopefully, hopefully it works, but we'll see.
We shall see. Okay. As of now, no more Rangers talk. That's the end of that. Second thing I'm going to declare in this episode is that we're going to do something that we haven't done all that much of in the previous 294 episodes of this show, officially anyway. And that is talk about draft picks, specifically the ones that the Islanders acquired in a trade with the Chicago Blackhawks last week, and what they might do with them, or maybe won't do with them. So by now you've heard about the trade. It kind of came out of nowhere. On Friday, the Islanders acquired a bunch of picks from Chicago, who, of course, they traded last year with and getting Josh Bailey off the books. So basically, the Islanders traded their first-round pick for this year, which was number 18th overall, to the Blackhawks for their first-round pick, for the Lightning's first-round pick, which was number 20th overall, which the Blackhawks acquired in the Brandon Hagel trade. So basically, the Islanders moved down one spot. They also sent the Blackhawks a second-round pick in this year's draft as well, and ended up, which was their own. And they ended up taking 2 second-round picks that the Blackhawks had as a result of other trades. Number 54 overall, which came from the LA Kings, and number 61 overall, which came from the Vancouver Canucks. What deals those were, I have absolutely no idea. So basically, long story short, the Islanders traded down 2 spots in the first round and traded a second-round pick and got an additional second-round pick. Now, at first, well, let me stop there. So when you first heard about this trade, what did you think? Did it register at all? Did you be like, oh, that's kind of cool, or was that kind of weird, or did you, like a lot of people, think that this was some sort of Lou Lamoriello masterclass, that he had just fleeced young Kyle Davidson once again and basically got an extra second-round pick out of it? What was your initial reaction to the trade as you saw it go down, or heard about it after it went down?
Yeah, I thought I was confused at first because it was a Friday afternoon of like around 1 p.m. right before the
1:30,
holiday weekend.
Right.
So at first I was just confused because it was random, and as a lot of people have said, these are the type of trades that happen on the draft floor. Right. But I just waited because I assume, like everybody else, I think at this point, that this is just the first leg of a multi-leg thing that the Islanders are working on, getting multiple second-round picks to either, so that if they trade their first-round pick as a sweetener or trade it for a player or whatever, they still have draft picks, or they use the second-round picks as a sweetener to shed some salary. So that's my assumption, and because it doesn't make much sense from the Blackhawks standpoint. I know they have a ton of picks.
Yes.
But it doesn't really make much sense to give up essentially give the Islanders back the pick that like the Josh Bailey thing. Like, right. I know that they're different picks, right? Like the Josh Bailey second round pick that the Islanders sent for the Blackhawks to buy him out was 2025 or 26, whenever it was. So it's not the same pick, but I feel like they just basically got him back for moving back a couple spots in a draft where nobody knows anything how the first round's going to shape out. But so yeah, I like everyone else, I'm just assuming that there's more here. But between that and Ruslan Siplikov, it's been a real busy offseason so far for the Islanders, and I feel like it does feel like the wheels are sort of in motion for them right now. And I will tell you where those picks came from, actually. Because it's fun to look at the Islanders cap friendly page now and see that they have the Lightning's first round pick, then the Kings and the Canucks. The Islanders have 3 picks of the first 2 rounds. None of them are theirs, and none of them are the Blackhawks, even though those are the trade. It's so fun to see how these we've talked about how one of our Weird Islanders episodes is basically about how Peter Regan ended up his nothing Islander career ended up giving the Rangers Igor Shesterkin, which is a nightmare. But there I go, breaking the rule. But it's fun to think about where these draft picks are. What if we're gonna look back and be like, man, if or the Blackhawks fans or Canucks fans or Kings fans would be like, man, if only we had held on to that second round pick and we would have had, Cade Southerby. Instead he's with the Islanders, or however it shapes out. But the Canucks pick came from the Jason Dickinson trade when they traded him to Chicago. They had to throw in a second round pick, so that they took the contract. And then the Kings pick came from that weird Ivan Provorov trade where the Flyers gave the King, that's how it originated, and then the Flyers then traded that pick on the draft day to the Blackhawks. So it's both of these draft picks are already well traveled, which is crazy to think because the draft is still a month away.
Yeah, no, that is crazy. I mean, good on you for even bothering to look those up and trying to decipher where those picks came from, because it's a little bit crazy. But yeah, it is funny that this trade yielded the Islanders not a pick of the Blackhawks or their own, which is kind of funny. Before we dive into how these picks could be used, reminder that we are on Patreon, patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety. You get ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, and a whole lot more. We got our Country Club Atmosphere coming up later this week. We got my Islanders Book Club coming up later this week. So even during the summer, sign up at the Patreon and you get stuff basically all summer long. So patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned Maxim Siplikov because we talked about him on our mailbag episode that we did last week, and I put out a free sampler so everybody can kind of catch up there. Basically, we have no idea what this guy's going to do, but maybe it works out. Shane Prince, of all people, was a former teammate and says he's well suited for the NHL game. We shall see. It's free money, and a lot of people were after him, so maybe it works out in the Islanders' favor. But how quickly we also forget in this, as part of this busy offseason already, the signing of Marcus Hogberg as well. So it has been pretty busy for Lou Lamoriello this summer already, and that's where this trade kind of comes in because I'm with you. I think this is the kind of thing that precludes a bigger trade because why would you make this sort of trade for picks a month and a half before the draft? The draft isn't until the end of June, and we're in the middle of May, and they're making these picks. So what on earth would the Islanders need an extra second round pick for? Well, there's a couple of things. One, they could use that pick to draft some guy in the second round of the draft this year. Maybe they will. I don't know. It's possible that they just use that pick. But it could also be that they attach that pick to a guy to get rid of his contract. And the two guys that we're thinking about, and Arthur Staple wrote about this at The Athletic, J.G. Pageau, perhaps, Anders Lee, both of them have 2 years left in their contracts. Pageau has 5 years left, $5 million each of those years. Lee has 7. Lee has a 15-team no-trade clause kicking in July 1st, which goes down from a no-movement clause. But something tells me that, I don't know if this deal would, one of these picks would make that much difference. If they have to trade him before July 1st, then I don't know if this pick is going to, if this is going to factor in, but that is notable to know. So I don't know, let me ask you this. Is this, we'll get into other ways they could use this pick later, but does this seem like, where are you kind of leaning towards this? Does it seem like they're going to use this to get rid of somebody, or do you think they could use this second round pick as a way to acquire somebody? And we'll talk about somebody specifically in a little bit, but I don't know, where do you maybe think that this is leaning, or maybe I should ask, which way do you want it to lean? Do you want it to go as a sweetener in a Pageau or Lee trade or somebody else trade, or would you rather they use that to acquire somebody new in a swap with somebody else?
I guess I would rather the latter. I do think that you can't have one without the other, I guess, right? You probably would need...
Right. You'd have to move one of those guys because they're making a lot.
Yeah, exactly. One of them or, Palmieri, but I don't think that the Islanders would be too keen on moving him or Nelson, just considering they're looking to add goals to this roster. And if you move, one of those guys, you're taking 30 off. And I know, if you move Lee, you're taking a bunch off too, but it's I think a little different. So I do think it's probably both. I think that it gives Lamoriello just an extra bit of flexibility. If we thought that if the cost to get Josh Bailey's contract off their books was a second round pick, it means that he's now got one. He's got 3 to really work with, right? He's got the 2025 and then the Kings 2024 and the Canucks 2024. Right. So I think it's both, right? It could mean that you could use one to do one of those things and then use the other in a package for another, or it also means you can use the first round pick to do the other things and then not really worry too much about your draft getting completely blown up because you still have a couple picks in the first 3 rounds. And as with most of these drafts, after the 12th or 15th pick, there's really no difference between picking 16th and 30th or whatever,
right,
or 50th. So it's not a huge difference. So I'm hopeful that it's to rearm the team, but I do think it's gives them more flexibility to get out from these contracts. And I the only thing I'd push back on what a lot of people say is that I really don't know if JG Pageau's contract is immovable without like, I don't think the Islanders would actually have to throw a sweetener in
Right.
because there were teams that were after him at the trade deadline. I think
Mm.
I can't remember if it was Stable who reported that, and that, like, teams that were desperate for a center, a bottom 6 center, especially because he's a right shot, playoff guy, very well thought of around the league, can kind of fit in to any roster.
Mm.
I don't know if you'd have to throw in a second round pick or to get that contract off the books.
Mm.
Maybe I'm proven wrong, but because it's 2 more years at $5 million, the cap's going up, and he's still going to be useful if they decide to trade him. So that's the one thing I would say. Lee's is a different story, just because of the position he plays, the type of hockey he plays, and the
Well,
money he's
7
making.
million is no,
Yeah,
yeah, that's no
right,
joke.
exactly. Yeah. So it's I think that's also worth mentioning. But yeah, it's it's the heady days of the off season when we're trying to get inside the head of Lou Lamoriello here with but it does make sense. It made it the move itself made a lot of sense, like,
Right.
it just generally, because it does give them now the options to do, like you said, either one of those things. So
Mm.
yeah, we shall see. But now we can start wish casting, a couple different players, because it gives the Islanders a now starting to have, like, that's the other thing that should also be mentioned, is the Islanders need draft picks if they are to go and make a big splash for one of the potential wanaways, the bigger ones out there, because they don't have the prospects that I think teams would covet. So you can just say, we don't have a Scott Wheeler's a player on Scott Wheeler's top 86
Right.
mid-season power ranking prospects that he saw. But we do have 4 draft picks that we can throw in instead. So
Right. Well, I will say this. I don't know how much stock NHL GMs are putting into Scott Wheeler's.
Well, I mean, a ton, because they put that's what do they do every morning? They get the Athletic delivered to their they read what they're being what a certain group of writers are saying about them.
Yeah.
And saying that, the Islanders fired the wrong guy, and the Oilers fired the wrong guy, and the Panthers should have never moved on from Andrew Brunette.
Right. Yeah.
Because and that's certainly proving to be true. I mean,
yeah.
good
Clearly.
God. That team's really struggling under Paul Maurice, but
Very much.
so yeah.
But yeah, I think Scott Wheeler likes to think that his NHL general managers are reading his thing. But you're right. Like, they don't have the prospect capital to trade. The other teams are probably going to covet, and so the draft picks are the better play. But it is funny. You bring up a good point about Pageau, and like, we've kind of assumed this whole time that, like, Pageau is I don't want to use the word albatross, but like a guy, he's clearly not as effective as he was. He's clearly being hampered by something. $5 million is not chump change. Like, that's a tough pill for a lot of most teams in the NHL to swallow. He does have trade protection, so it's not like they can just give him away. He has a modified no trade clause, actually beginning. Well, yeah, it started already, and then he's got a 16-team no trade list. So, like, but at the same time, I think he's still a pretty effective guy, and I think other teams would want him, especially teams that kind of struggling in the playoffs. And I'll get to one in a minute that I think we should maybe focus on, although again, it's wish casting, so take that all with a grain of salt. But you're right. I mean, the Islanders now are in a good position. They do have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds. Again, they have their first round pick. It's dead in the middle, like you said, with the Lightning's pick, and they could potentially use that too. And like you said, they might have eyes on a particular player in the second round, or they think might be a second rounder that they can use one of these 2 picks on. They could also maybe package those 2 picks up for a pick higher in the second round, or even in the late first round. Like, we've seen Gart Snow do that, where he took a couple of second round picks and turned them into a late first round pick. And I think that's how we ended up with Anthony Beauvillier. So there's a lot more flexibility here, all in one trade. And all the Islanders had to do was basically move down 2 spots in the first round, which, like you said, in the draft like this, where there's a bunch of key guys early on that aren't going to get, that are all kind of interchangeable. And after that, you never know. The Blackhawks, by the way, also have the second overall pick. So I guarantee they weren't sweating this 18 to 20th swap, which is another kind of thing that's sort of like from their end of it, like, well, who the hell cares? Like, they're already picking second. So
People are like, oh, why would the Blackhawks give the Islanders a free 1.6 NHLE plus NHLE GSVA here in this draft? And you look and okay, you want to bring that, sure, but they also they have 2 first-round picks, they have 2 second-round picks, and 2 third-round picks. So it's not like at some point you can't just draft 11 people, and have them all in your organization. Like there are caps to all this. So I'm sure that they didn't just like get a text message from Lou Lamoriello and think, oh God. Just say yes. Like they talk about it. People act like they were just like asleep at the wheel and drunk already on Memorial Day Friday. No, they have, there's a reason for it, and whatever. It's you look at their cap friendly draft page and it's just littered with picks. So I don't think that they're gonna be too worried about the minus 1.6 GSVA they lost.
and even more picks in the next 2 years too. Basically, they're the person they're focused on right now is the guy who's not Macklin Celebrini, who they're going to draft second overall. That's it. They don't care about anything else. So, and it works to the Islanders' advantage. And it's funny you mention that too, because we talk so much about how little credit the Islanders get for anything. I saw people be like, oh my God, what a fleecing this was. And I'm like, is it? I mean, it's cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad they did it, but I don't know. It seems like a pretty straightforward deal to me. I don't think I don't think Lou Lamoriello is like, hanging this one on his wall, like another chalk one up for Lou again, like doesn't work that way. But this does give the Islanders a ton of flexibility. And what made me think was that maybe they could use these picks, as we've been talking about, in a for real trade. Not a salary dump, which, again, might be one of these guys ends up being a sweetener, or one of these picks ends up being a sweetener for somebody to take them off the books. That could happen, or it could be used in just a straight up hockey trade, a trade, for a guy also making a lot of money who, they don't have the prospects to do it. So they throw in a pick or two here. And, I almost hate doing this because we talk about this team enough, but we're going to talk about them in a bit of a different context here. And that is, a certain player on a team, called the Toronto Maple Leafs, who was drafted under Lou Lamoriello and knows Lou Lamoriello very, very well, and is very tight with Matt Martin, who, whether he re-signs with the Islanders or not, is the mayor of Long Island, as we've discussed this, and had his best years, or, his made his name in junior hockey. And I'm sure he is very well known to Patrick Waugh in his years playing in that system too, although obviously Waugh was in the QMJHL and this player was in the OHL. And the player is Mitch Marner, a man who is marked to leave Toronto after another sort of poor playoff performance. He is a UFA at the end of this year. He's going to be wanting a lot of money. He is currently making, let me see, it's going to make $10.9 million next year. So basically $11 million next year. Then he's a UFA, and he's going to want even more after that. And so this is a sticky situation for Maple Leafs general manager Brad Treliving, because if Marner, who is extremely talented, let's be honest here. I mean, the guy's had 90 points plus in the last 3 seasons. He had 30 goals last year. One of the best players in the league, certainly one of the best players on one of the best regular season teams in the league. But this is a sticky situation, because if he gives Marner what he's going to want next year, then he's going to have even less flexibility going forward. And that's been basically one of the Leafs' big problems in the last couple of years. But he also may not want to trade a guy who is really, really, really good. And if he's going to get rid of him, well, he's going to have to get something back that is going to be meaningful. I'm not saying that the Islanders are going to trade a second-round pick for Mitch Marner, or even a first-round pick for Mitch Marner. But what if the Pajot trade with one of these picks wasn't just a straight salary dump to get rid of a guy who may not be as effective anymore, but what if it was something along the lines of like Pajot and a second-round pick and, say, a defenseman, like an Adam Pelech or something like that for Mitch Marner? I'm just throwing names out there. Obviously, this is why we don't do this on the show, because I feel very uncomfortable doing this kind of stuff. But I'm going to throw it back to you. Like, where do you, when you saw this trade go down, my brain went to, I think they're going to do something here, and all of the threads tying Lamoriello, Martin, and the Islanders in a way to Mitch Marner. Did your brain make that connection as well, or do I have maybe like Leaf brain after doing too many Master Leaf theaters this summer?
No, I don't think that you're wrong. I think, and I would say that to me, the Islanders will be in the running if Marner decides to get traded. And this is the fact that the Islanders have already done this. It feels like they are just setting themselves up for something. I haven't listened to much of 32 Thoughts lately, but I'm assuming that they maybe mentioned this trade. I know they didn't. We talked about how they didn't ever mention the Robert Bortuzzo trade. We'll forgive them. But I'd assume that they were saying, or Fried was probably saying that the Islanders this trade is to set them up for something bigger. And yeah, Marner, whether it's Marner or like Nick Ehlers or someone from Anaheim, whoever you want to pluck. But I do think that is the number one on my wish list would be Marner. And it would come with the caveat of I don't care if he sucked here, because it would just be so funny. Even if he showed up, played 2 games, and was like, you know what, this isn't for me, I'm out. Just the fact that we'd get to enjoy the few weeks after the trade of that city trying, eating itself alive over the return. The fact that it's the Islanders and it's Lou. I remember once, this is poor form from me because I can't really remember exactly who it was, but it was definitely somebody in the Master Leaf Theater or universe that when the Leafs got eliminated by the Lightning 2 years ago, that they were talking about Marner and Matthews and all this, and that was one of the big run it back years, which was there's been several of them, but that was one of them. And I remember somebody tweeting through it being like, and for those saying like Marner, they should trade Marner, like think about how far this team would be back if Kyle Dubas didn't stick his neck out and say like they should draft Marner over Noah Hannafin. I was like, Kyle Dubas drafted Marner. Right. That doesn't sound right. Because I think when Rich Marner was drafted, Lou Lamoriello was the GM.
Yeah, he signed his ELC. I'm looking at it right here.
Yeah. But he's going through it, and it's like, Mark Hunter and Lou Lamoriello probably wanted a player like Noah Hannafin, who I guess went right after Marner, or whatever. I don't know. And then I was like, that makes even less sense to throw Mark Hunter in there,
right?
Because Mark Hunter was the assistant GM at the time with Dubas, and that was the fun thing, right? It was like Lou and Mark Hunter, hockey men, versus Kyle Dubas, the lapel pin, wearing pins and saying, this is, I'm here to grow the game kind of guy, battling in the front office. And I was like, why are they giving credit to Dubas for drafting this guy when he was the assistant GM? And Mark Hunter, Dan, as it turns out, was Mitch Marner's junior coach.
Right.
So definitely, there was definitely Dubas who stuck his neck out and said to trade for Marner. But so to have that group of people have to come to grips with, Tree Living trading Marner away to the guy Lou Lamoriello, who gets no credit for drafting him or any of the other guys that are none of these guys were drafted by Kyle Dubas, which is the funniest part of the whole core 4 thing. The only guy that he acquired was the bad one, Tavares. It's just so funny. That would be worth it to me. Like, I don't care if he showed up and just was a petulant child doing the gritty and all that, because it would, like, honestly, like the few weeks of the few weeks of discourse and watching these people really have a tough time with it would be worth it to me. And these picks get us one step closer to that reality, which is why I love this trade so far.
And now, a word from our sponsors. First is VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, mugs, and more, featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey also carries our Al Arbor and the Island merch, and our portion of the sales always go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. Use the code ANXIETY20 to save 20% off an order of 2 items. That is vintageicehockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a 2022 Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void were prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
It's time for today's Lucky Land horoscope with Victoria Cash.
Life's gotten mundane, so shake up the daily routine and be adventurous with a trip to Lucky Land. You know what they say. Your chance to win starts with a spin. So go to LuckyLandSlots.com to play over 100 social casino-style games for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Get lucky today at LuckyLandSlots.com.
Available to players in the U.S., excluding Washington and Michigan. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void were prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Well, so I'm glad you went there, because that's the other thing about this. So here I am thinking, like, man, an extra second round pick. You know, Leafs are looking to get a little bit better in the playoffs. Maybe a JG Pageau, maybe, you know, an Adam Pelech or somebody like that, you know, could maybe change, they think could change their fortunes. Maybe this is coming together. We are one step closer to this. And I thought to myself, you know, Marner he's a winger, obviously a top line winger. This would be a perfect fit on a line with either Bo Horvat or Matt Barzal. You know, I misspoke before. Marner only had 26 goals this year, which would have put him third on the Islanders. But he had 85 assists, so he's, you know, a pass first winger type. Needless to say, getting better players at a spot where you're weakest is a good idea. You know, especially for a team like the Islanders that can use all the help they can get. But then I thought about all the other stuff. And I thought about his attitude, the Matthews and Nylander yelling at him on the bench. His father is extremely involved in his negotiations. They have a direct pipeline to Darren Dreger, which I'm sure Lou absolutely loves and loved when he was in Toronto and would totally love if he was with the Islanders. And he just has all these sort of red flags about being kind of a weird dude. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. We're all weird dudes in our own way. And obviously, again, the Marner, Matt Martin connection cannot be undersold here. Like, these guys have vacationed together, which you'll find out a little bit more about on our live episode of Weird Islanders podcast coming out in a few weeks. These guys are tight. They were tight when they were in Toronto. I'm assuming they're still somewhat tight now. I think Matt Martin would be the perfect salesman for Long Island. And so I thought about all that. And then I thought to myself, you know, this dude's going to want $12 million next year, maybe more. Like, is that even worth it? I don't understand. Like, then they'd have to get rid of more. Is that going to screw up? Is that going to blow up the Islanders' salary structure the way it's blowing up the Leafs' salary structure? I don't know. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I don't care. If they pull it off and they can get this guy and he comes down here and maybe he's freed and feels better pulling out of the spotlight in his hometown, then maybe it works out great. And if he doesn't, well, maybe the fact that he's a UFA and he doesn't come with a contract extension maybe means that they can get something, they can get him a lot cheaper. and they could work out something, and maybe it doesn't cost them a whole lot more than just a couple of those picks. So we'll see. Again, we're speculating. We don't know. I'm sure there are other guys out there, and I don't want to get my hopes up or your hopes up too much, because they could still just use this pick to draft some dude in the second round. Like, I have absolutely no idea. But this
it would be funny if it's just nothing.
Right, some Finnish guy or something.
Yeah,
right.
And it was the type of thing that it's like it only stopped the hockey world for a second because nothing else happens really like on the day of these games. So it's the only thing really going on.
Holiday weekend,
Yeah, exactly. And it was it's peculiar, but I do think a few years ago when Marner was doing his potential contract holdout, we had some fun with the Marner connection. So like it'll be fun to rehash that. And I do want to say, like, I really as of right now, 8:58 p.m. Eastern time on May 27th, 2024. I hate Mitch Marner. Like,
absolutely.
He is so hard to like. He is really, really, really hard to like. I think that's part of the problem.
He is also dripping with Leaf stink. Let's be honest. He's dripping with it.
But man, I would pick him up from the airport and completely forgive him at the same time if this ever came to fruition. But what he is like the to use the same kind of tired cliche over again is like the grow the game, got to market the players, you got to market the stars more, like that kind of wide net that people love to cast. I feel like Mitch Marner hears that, it's like, oh, you know what that means? That means people must love if I do this cool TikTok dance after during practice and such. And we're like, no, that's kind of just annoying and weird. And you're not like 18 either. You're closer to 30.
27 years old.
Yeah, you're closer to 30 than that. Like, you're married and whatever. But so he has this very weird. He's like, he misses the mark with like his personality. We're like, we get what you're trying to do here, Mitch. You're trying to show off this, that you're cool and hip, and you're not just some hockey robot like the guy that the Islanders drafted before, Victor Hedman. We get it, but like, you're also it's very forced. It's very plastic. It's very style over substance here, and that just doesn't fly on the island. And I think that's kind of going to be fun too if he came here. I think his personality won't have to match the market. So all of a sudden he can be like, hey, you're going to crack up, Mitch, but when you leave your house in the morning and you drive to practice and you need gas, or you want to pick up a coffee, Steve Simmons isn't going to be there. Like,
that's true.
Jonas Siegel isn't going to be measuring your shoe size at training camp, being like, Mitch Marner is up to a 10.5 after being a 10 all last year.
I think he would relish the idea of like these people not crawling up his ass all day, every day. Like, I get it. He's playing in his hometown. That's a huge thing. He was kind of earmarked for this potentially his whole career, his junior career in particular. But like, I think, and not for now, I don't know if, obviously I haven't talked to the man, but I feel like Bo Horvat, I think we talked about this. I feel like I'm getting deja vu here. Like, Bo Horvat has to appreciate what being out of Vancouver is like, right? Yeah. Like, he can live his life. He's got 2 beautiful kids and a wife. They can go to the park. They can have a good time. And they don't have a bunch of guys coming up to him and being like, oh, what's going on with the power play out there? Like, dude, just leave me alone, man. I'm trying to hang out with my kids. Like, leave me alone. Like, these guys have to appreciate this. And I think the Islanders in general do. I think they really do. And, they go get a coffee and they might hear somebody like, hey, man, keep your head up. I'll see you. Oh, yeah, no problem, man. Like, it's not that it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen to the degree and the frequency that it does. Yeah. If you play for the Leafs or the Canucks or the Oilers or something like that.
And it's simple math, right? Like, if our fan base is so much smaller than theirs, so like if you do go to, if he went to like a Starbucks in Garden City compared to one in Richmond Hill or whatever in Toronto,
Medford,
everybody if he walks into that coffee shop and there's 50 people in there, 47 out of those 50 people are going to be Leafs fans. They're going to know who he is, and the majority will probably be just normal people, right? Like, they won't say anything. Maybe 1 or 2 will ask for a picture, and it'll be that. And then, of course, you'll probably get 1 or 2 lunatics. And then, but on the island, like, it would be, you'd walk into a Starbucks, there'd be 20 people in there. 3 might be Islander fans and recognize him. Right. And because the you're dealing with just simple math where like you'd have to, for there to be one crazy fan out of every 50, you'd have to make like 20 trips to that Starbucks before maybe somebody heckles you and was like, we're really paying you $10.9 million and whatever. So that it would just be nice. And it would be fun to almost follow him around with a camera if this hypothetical trade that we're now doing 20 minutes on happens, because it would look very like if you shot it Always Sunny style, right? Like just like close up, like single shots following him around doing his daily stuff, or scrubs or whatever. And I would love to watch his reaction the first time he walks into a coffee shop or a King Cullen or whatever, and walks out without being stopped. And he'd be like, you'd see him like twitching. Maybe he'd be wearing like a sweatshirt and sunglasses going in and out because he forgot to get his body armor or whatever that he needs to get for a photo op. And maybe a security guard will stop and be like, dude, are you all right? Like, you look like you're about to rob the place. And like, well, you don't know what I've seen, man, up in Toronto. But I would love to see that. And I wish Islander fans or Islander players like Horvat who come from other markets and settle in here and talk about how much they love it. I would love to hear them actually talk about that and like the tranquility that must come, and the inner peace, and the fact that you can sleep at night without having to worry about waking up in the morning, turning on the radio and hearing, Bo Horvat is a terrible captain. He's dragging the Canucks through the mud with this contract talk, right? Like Bo Horvat, wakes up in the morning and says hi, probably sees a neighbor or two, waves and goes to work and comes home, and that's it. Like he gets to work. It's almost like working the best 9 to 5 ever when you're an Islander, rather than what these guys deal with in the other markets. But here's the kicker: you're still in New York,
right?
Like you're not. It's not like you're in Winnipeg or you're in Nashville or these non-traditional markets. You're in a huge sporting market. You're just the 10th team on the list, so you still get all the great stuff in New York, and you get to pay all the crazy taxes and all that. But you get all that without the downside of being in Toronto or whatever. It's man, it's I would love to hear more about it from players who've come from other markets and such.
Well, you get all the amenities and advantages of playing in New York City, but you can also go golf and go to the beach and do all this stuff out on the island that we love to do. And again, have that big house and that big car, and the schools, of course, which we have not mentioned this whole time, that are you can get from living out on the island. So I mean, it's a great situation, but would he even want it? Again, he's got full trade protection. The other thing I'm afraid of is I am loath to help the Leafs get better in any way. And I would hate, like, as much as it would be fun for the Islanders to acquire Mitch Marner and get to laugh at all these people who now have to like pay attention to the Islanders for the first time in their lives, I would hate for that trade to actually make the Leafs better and help them, win around in the playoffs and whatnot. So hopefully that part can continue while the Islanders also acquire Mitch Marner. But again, we are wish casting here. All the Islanders did was pick up a second-round pick. And we'll also we've acquired Mitch Marner. Yep. We've given him $12 million to play here for the rest of his life. And
we've projected a sense of inner peace on him that he's never felt before.
we have him moving in with Matt Martin and his wife, and they're hanging out, and he's babysitting the kids and everything. And it's a beautiful reality show.
In the morning.
Exactly, where he's getting his coffee, hanging out with Patrick Waugh. So we are way off the reservation. But, in the interest of equal time, we'll give a look at a couple other guys who the Islanders might use that pick on. For some reason, Nikolai Ehlers is having some rumors about him swirling in Winnipeg. I don't know why. They just named their new coach this year. The Jets, as we've seen the Islanders do, went on an extensive search for a brand new coach after Rick Bowness decided to retire, and came away with the guy who was already his assistant coach. So good job on the Jets to pretend like you actually tried to find a new coach and just name the guy who was already standing there. But Scott Arniel is their coach now. But Ehlers had a good season, full season, 82 games, 25 goals, 36 assists, 61 points. That's a heck of a season. And if he is in fact available, the Islanders should be interested. He's making $6 million this year, and then he's a UFA. So again, if you trade for him, there's a chance it might be a 1-year thing unless you sign him to an extension. And I doubt he's going to want to take a dime less than the $6 million that he's making right now. So that's an option. The Senators, the perpetual rebuild is still going on over there. Shane Pinto, they love him, Frege. They love him out in Ottawa. But he's an RFA this year, and obviously he spent half the season sitting around because of his whole gambling thing, whatever happened there. So, maybe the Islanders could float the Senators a second-round pick for him. That would make a lot of sense and make things a lot easier. But again, the Islanders would have to then sign him to a contract extension. So, and the Lightning, man, they're cap friendly. I mean, listen, I'm not going to criticize Julien Brisebois. These guys have 2 cups and are the gold standard for this era. So far be it for me to criticize how these guys do business, but they do not have a pick in the first 3 rounds this year. They don't have a pick in the first 2 rounds next year. They have a ton of guys making a ton of dough. Their captain is a UFA, and it sounds like he doesn't want to really leave, and they probably don't want to lose him, but they got a lot of guys making a lot of money, including Brandon Hagel, who we talked about at the top, which is how this pick ended up with the Islanders, who's making $6.5 million. Braden Point, $9.5. Kucherov, $9.5. Anthony Cirelli, 6.25. Nick Paul's making 3.1. Sergachev is making 8.5. Hedman is making 7.8, and he's got 1 year left. They just reacquired Ryan McDonough, who for some reason is making $6.7 million this year and next year. So still getting paid a lot of money. Eric Chernak is making 5.2 for the next, foreseeable future. How is that possible? So something tells me the Lightning are going to have to get rid of somebody. And I don't know if the Islanders are going to be there to catch that person, who that person could possibly be. I guess they signed these guys to long-term contracts. So my assumption is that they like to keep them. But I don't know. Again, we're just throwing this out. I don't think the Islanders are in any danger of acquiring Nikita Kucherov anytime soon. But something's going to have to give. Vasilevsky obviously is making 9.5 for the next 4 seasons as well. So I don't know. There's a lot of options out there. And as we said, and as we've been talking about, this trade, while modest, could be significant. Like this, you might be looking back at that, Memorial Day weekend, 1:00 news dump and be like, wow, that pick swap with the Blackhawks really kind of changed the Islanders' fortune. Going forward, we might be sitting here a year from now being like, wow, if not for that trade, this successful season that we just watched wouldn't have happened. So there you go. You never know. We've never had an episode like this where we talked about a very minor trade like this. But again, like you said, normally these kinds of trades happen at the draft floor, so we wouldn't have an episode about this. But in this case, the fact that this happened this early tells me that they have some plans for these picks, whatever they may be.
Exactly. And like the the Islanders are. He's I think we can now officially put him on that on that Mike Riley team. The future former Islander. Or former future Islander Nick Ehlers, because there was a couple years ago where his name popped up with the Isles and them being connected to him because he's always in and out of favor with whoever's the coach there, with whether it's Bonus or Maurice or now Scott Arniel, and he would be a great fit honestly for the Isles, and so I would love him, but I just don't think that the Jets are gonna trade. I get like he's a UFA. And the Jets, the way they have to do business, and it is nice now that teams like media members are now adding the context to why teams like Winnipeg or the Islanders or the Blue Jackets, why they do or don't take risks, or they do or don't make certain trades. Like with Ehlers, he's got one next year, and then he's a UFA. And with the Jets, because like the Islanders, they really struggled attracting free agents and such. Like they have to cash in on those kind of guys if they know they're not going to re-sign them. And it's so nice now to hear media members, Elliot Friedman especially, like say, this is why this is why they're doing this, right? It's not like they just don't like Nick Ehlers. They're just saying, hey, he's gone and we're the Jets, so like we have to get something for him as best we can, because it has to be now, it has to be good. Like there's a reason why he's on the market, because it's not as simple as, hey, well, should we resign this guy? No, he stinks, like don't let him go. It's like, no, they desperately want to. It's just he's probably not going to because we're in Winnipeg, which is a problem, because I see people when his name started to pop up in rumors over the past week or so, people like, why would they ever trade him and not just re-sign him? Like, because they're in Winnipeg, he might not want to sign there. Like it's not, it's that simple. Yeah, he'd be great. And I'm happy you brought up the McDonough trade with the Lightning. Uh, it's just so fun, man. They're so much fun. The Lightning. I hate them for what they did, or I'm mad at what they did to us those 2 years, sure, but they're just fun to have around in the league, and I like that they just do this kind of stuff. It cracks me up to look at their roster. You get 4 players down. You're like, yeah, I know that guy. He's what superstar, really, really good player, really good player. Never heard of that guy in my life. And there's like 6 of them.
You can't convince me that Nick Perbix is a real person. I'm sorry, he's not. He can't be.
It's just so much fun. It's so fun. Yeah, and I look at like the fact that it's like the Lightning are in this weird situation right now. Obviously, the Maple Leafs are in this weird situation now. The Jets are in a weird situation with Ehlers. There's all those teams out there that are looking to get a goalie. Like the Devils are desperate to get a goalie. The Senators are calming the waters, so who knows with them? But it does feel like that. It does, at the risk of sounding like at throwing out a cliche that we hate to hear because it's just a blanket, vague, general statement that you hear everyone says at least once right before the offseason starts. It could be an interesting offseason with a lot of movement, but at least with this, I'm saying that this time with the Islanders being involved in it, right? Like when I say it could be an interesting offseason with a lot of movement, I mean the Islanders could be involved in it, which we obviously didn't feel was going to be the case last year. So, or the year before that, or before that, really. So, I don't know. It's who knows? Who knows? Maybe tomorrow we wake up, we get the next shoe to drop, or there is no other shoe. And I saw there are some people who think that this was the when they did trade Josh Bailey, there were some future considerations going one way or the other.
Right.
And
This
was the future considerations. So who knows? What we do know is we won't ever find out until something else happens. But the waters might be calm in Ottawa, but they're a little choppy here on the island after this kind of weird, peculiar trade.
If these are the future considerations for the Josh Bailey trade, these are some very complex future considerations. Because I mean, let's be honest, most of the time the future considerations don't mean anything. Like they're just nothing. People, they just kind of go into the ether and it's never happened. So, but yeah, no, it's possible. I'm glad you mentioned all of that, those different considerations and stuff, because it's true. Like you never know with these teams. And I think people are catching on that, not everybody can do everything that they want. Because and that's the other thing too, real quick, like we complain a lot, and Islanders fans complain a lot about all the no movement clauses that are around the roster, and the guys with this modified thing and this team list and here and that. Please go to Cap Friendly and look at every other roster in the league and count up how many people don't have these types of clauses in there. It's everybody. Everybody's got this stuff, and this is what the players want. The only teams that don't have these types of clauses are teams like the Sharks and Blackhawks and Ducks, right? With guys who just kind of showed up there. Actually, in my case, I think the Ducks, they don't have anybody really, but a couple of guys. But if you look at the Leafs, I think there's like 4 guys that don't have trade protection. Or where's the Lightning? That there's very few that don't. And so the Islanders are right there with everybody else. That you just have to navigate this stuff around this kind of stuff, and that's just how it is. But according to Elliot Friedman, if Mitch Marner wants to go, the ball's in his court. And I think if he wanted to, I think the Islanders would be interested. But maybe they won't be. I don't know. We'll see. But I think, again, these trades could mean could be the portal for things to start happening. And I don't know, maybe they took the Memorial Day weekend to figure it out. And maybe we will see something soon. But if not, the draft is at the end of June, the 28th and 29th. And so I think by then we'll know. And if they end up taking just 2 extra Finnish guys or Swedish guys, well, then this entire 48 minutes that we've spent talking will have been complete waste of your time. But we'll have to find it. We have a few weeks to figure that out. Thank you very much for listening. That's going to be it for us today. We are going to record an episode of Country Club Atmosphere right after this. That will be available at the Patreon later this week. So check that up. Sign up at the Patreon, patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety for ad-free episodes and bonus content. Follow us on Twitter at IslesAnxietyPod. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible.com, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Our theme song is Morning Haze by Family Dinner. Listen to more of their music at Bandcamp and at Spotify. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Learn more at fansfirstsports.com. Shop vintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Mike, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
You can find me at the Big Lebowski with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big Lebowski. Read and listen to his work at Action Network. We actually extracted an awful lot out of that very minor trade on a Friday before Memorial Day. Any final thoughts before we head out for this episode?
No, no, nothing else here. I didn't think we'd get this far, but when our imaginations got the better of us once again,
right.
and our propensity for maybe we are a part of the Master Leaf Theater universe in our own way. Like we're starting to just become Luke Fox Jukebox and Jonas Siegel. We're just we've become so obsessed with them that we're just slowly morphing into them. Because I was really down a 100% hypothetical rabbit hole about Mitch Marner walking down 7th Street in Garden City and writing the Athletic article that would never get written because he would be on the Islanders, but writing that article in my own head.
Yeah. Oh no, me too. Oh, I was convinced. I mean, I was ready for it.
And honestly, if he does come, we're gonna have to write like I don't know who we're gonna have to pitch. I don't care if it's Variety or if it's Consumer Report. Anybody who will take our content, I'm gonna write a 15,000 word expose about Mitch Marner, a day in the life of Mitch Marner. Now that he's freed from Toronto, toiling away up there, but and just write the day in the life and make it as a mundane thing and just use all my Luke Fox jukeboxisms and Josh Cloakisms and Jonas Siegelisms about him, just going about his day on Long Island, and hope that there's some blowback from them up there being like, who would ever read this kind of stuff? Like I'm reading what he's getting on his bagel and what kind of coffee he's getting.
Yeah.
That's not the type of hard-hitting journalism that he's used to up here.
Right. Yeah. Nobody's even called his grandmother. I don't understand why. If we are part of the Master Leaf Theater universe, and I mean, it's possible that we are at this point because we already have plans to record another standalone episode a little bit later. We got to work on the timing of that. But, we have a Jane Austen. We have a Charles Dickens. We even have a Beowulf. We would be like clearly the Hunter S. Thompson of Master Leaf Theater because we would be having these conversations all kinds of different places that really heightening the sort of personalities of these people to kind of insane levels. We wouldn't obviously be on the amount and type of drugs that guy was on, but I think we'd probably fill the same role. So I don't know. It's something to consider, and we will consider it later on this summer on Master Leaf Theater, available only from Islanders Anxiety. But thank you very much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this Rangers Free Zone for a little while, and we'll be back soon. Remember, there's no anxiety next week, but there is an episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast, coming out on Friday. This is our penultimate episode for the season. It's absolutely fantastic with a guy who actually turned out to be a hell of a player once he got traded from the Islanders. Go figure. That never happens, does it? But it's a great episode, so that'll come out next Friday, and then we'll be back with Anxiety a little bit after that. All right, but take a look at the Patreon for the calendars that they're free. You can read them there. And of course, congratulations to Robert Bortuzzo for winning the first ever Don Cutts Trophy for Weirdest Islander of the Year. This is going to be an annual tradition going forward, and we awarded that to him on the last episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast with our friend John Zella. Check it out if you haven't, if you didn't get a chance over the weekend. But it is, in fact, Robert Bortuzzo, and it is, in fact, the Don Cutts Trophy, and it all worked out very perfectly. And we had a great time, so check it out. Okay? Thanks a lot for listening, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.